Okay, coming all the way from the West Coast, because I'm on the other coast, we've got Laura Handke who is joining us. And Laura, tell us what it is that you do, because I know you and I have a couple of things that we definitely dislike, but let's talk about what we like first and what it is that you do.
Gotcha. Well, I'm Laura Handke. I'm Lake Oswego's transformational voice teacher. Sometimes refer to myself as a recovering claims examiner. But yeah, that's what I do. I help people with their voices, singing, speaking, healthy and effective vocal technique.
Well, that's definitely something that we have here. I mean, honestly, this is something you probably don't know about me, but before I got behind a microphone, I actually stuttered, I stammered, and I had a lisp. And so I
Oh,
worked with a speech pathologist to battle that, to learn how to kind of turn it off before it happened. And it ended up just working out well because my voice dropped shortly after I started the speech pathology. The breathing exercises that they taught me helped out, and really thinking differently about my voice also helped out. And so here I am, now behind a microphone for most of my life, really, and I owe it all to basically people who are coaches who work with speech. So, is that the kind of same thing that you do, or what is your focus more on? I guess.
well, it's breath-based vocalization for sure.
Hmm.
Okay, so you were talking about the breathing, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't really understand is that your breath is actually what's carrying the sound of your voice in many ways. I call it the river that carries the sound of your voice. So you got to teach people how to breathe properly. Number one, and I mean, you have a very, I'm guessing, I don't, are you a singer at all?
In the shower, in the car, I try not to do it in public too much, but
Well,
no.
I mean, just listening to your voice right now, I mean, you sound like a baritone to me. You probably got an inner singer you're not very acquainted with yet, but that's like a lot of people who come to me. I'll just kind of use a couple of examples here because you asked what my focus is and what my specialty is. So a lot of times I get people who are, for example, business owners,
Hmm.
and they need to talk about their business. They have to, and everything's online these days. And so it's like, how do I use my voice to most effectively talk about what I do and what I have to offer, what my services are for people? And so they'll come to me, and maybe there's a lot of throat tension, for example.
Right.
And so there's like this throat squeeze thing that's going on, and their voice is kind of like, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's like all this
I've
pressure
heard
right
that.
there.
I've heard that in the studio. Yeah, when I've been, I was a radio producer for many years, and yeah, people would come in and not be prepared really at all. They would have some words that the salesperson wrote down that they'd sometimes never looked at before. Nervous, tense, not
Yeah,
breathing, and they're
yeah,
trying to squeeze words out, and you're just like,
exactly. And
take a
so it's
nice
like a
deep
matter
cleansing breath, think about
of,
it. And I was like, here, hand me the paper. And I'd be like, who are you and what's your business? Well, my name is Bob and I've been in business since 1969. Okay, where's your business located? My business is located in, and
yeah.
before you know it, we've got a commercial. I'm like, there you go. Like I was like, bring that guy, bring that guy next time.
Yeah, and I don't work with the content so much, although that does come up from time to time. It's like the words that you're using to deliver. That's not really my focus. My focus is how do you use your body, your instrument, most effectively, so that you're not forcing, so you're not pushing. You're using your breath, and your body is relaxed. And a lot of times, these speakers who come to me, once they get the technique mastered, and it can take a while. It really, each person is so individual. I mean, some of this, like I said, have the throat tension. For others, their abdomen is just, like they cannot relax their belly to be able to properly breathe. So we focus on that. But a lot of times I can get people, with the technique kind of getting into muscle memory in about 5 sessions or so.
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden that singer starts to come out. Well, isn't that fun? Because all of a sudden now you know how to use your voice properly and you're starting to relax. It's like, oh, now let's do a little singing. So it's really fun when that happens.
Yeah, once people's voices start becoming really resonant, you know and they're projecting, and it's really it's a massive change. I mean, obviously not all voiceover and not all voice acting uses that, but it's nice to be able to have that. It's nice to be able to have that arsenal and learn that, when you speak from different parts of the mouth, you can quiet it down, you can make it a lot louder, you can make it more resonant, you can bring more growls and things into it. And and you never know kind of what you're going to do in the booth. And so it's good to be prepared, like you're saying, with the full body, the full instrument that you bring in there, and make sure that all the parts of it are tuned up properly and you know how to use them.
Well, exactly. And there's a couple of things I want to touch on there that relates to what you just said. Part of it is just when people use their voices a lot, they don't want to get hoarse.
Right.
You don't want your instrument to tire at the end of the day. And if you're properly speaking, you should be able to speak for hours without losing your voice. But if you don't know how to do that, you're going to get hoarse, your voice is going to go out on you. And that's why people come to me a lot of times too. It's like they're professional speakers and they feel like they're getting laryngitis or, whatever the case may be. But the other part of it is that there's such a relationship between the inner voice and the outer voice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when people's voices are squelched, it's because they've suffered some kind of a trauma. When you're told as a little kid that you should, or, someone like you that had a stutter, a lisp, and so there's these issues surrounding your voice. So when you start working with your instrument, whatever it was that was, that person who told you should lip sync and choir when you were in third grade, or the parents who are like, just be quiet, children should be seen and not heard, that whole thing.
Yes.
So it's really interesting how stuff comes up like that when you start working with your voice. So you're healing not just your physical instrument, but you're starting to work with whatever that caused that in the first place. So it's really interesting stuff.
I think that that's especially true of people who are actually in, especially voice acting, because you have to call on memories. You have to call on things sometimes to bring, that character to life that maybe is going through something that you've gone with before. And I actually, in a previous podcast, we talked about how those kinds of things, how that kind of rot, running away from it, just lets it fester, just lets it grow.
Yes.
And, sometimes you have to walk toward a challenge to resolve it. And, you go through the other side and you realize, why I was more afraid of that. It was more fear of that was blocking me than it was the actual thing. Not that dealing with it's easy.
Yes, you get it. Yep.
The fear of dealing with things sometimes prevents us from dealing with them. And that's good. It's good that you're looking at the body, there, because obviously the connection, the emotional, connection of your voice obviously is something that without would be replaced by computers tomorrow if there wasn't the emotional connection between what's coming out of our mouth and what's in our head and in our hearts. So exactly,
and especially as actors. And I think this is another element I don't think people really understand. I mean, you can be technically the best speaker in the whole entire world, but if you're not connected with your own emotions while you're delivering your speech, you are not going to get anywhere with your audience. You've got to be able to feel something as a speaker, as an actor, to really, truly 100% connect with your audience. And you and I are both actors too, not just speakers, so. Right. And the same is true with a singer too. If it's a technically perfect vocal delivery and performance, but there's not that emotional connection, it's just not the same thing.
Yeah, it's really nice. I used to do a lot of in-person training, and it was very overwhelming at first, a whole room of people and they're all expecting to learn from you, and you just have to pick out those friendly faces in the crowd and talk to that person, and the other people pick up on that as well. And I find that you can make a cold, unwelcoming room become a welcoming room just by focusing on that energy from that one person, which there's almost always at least one there who's somewhat open.
You feel that energetic connection with those people that you're making that connection with. It's really interesting. And it's funny, I didn't know this conversation was going to end up going down this path, but I just got done. I mentioned in that video that I just completed my first voice only work as an actor. And I don't know, I can't remember if I shared that with you or not, but I like to be on stage. I've done a little film work, I've done some TV, but theater is really my love. And of course, all the theater now is on Zoom. So I just did a radio show. It's a radio production of The Christmas Carol. That's and great. It's gonna be audio only. So it opens on Friday night. I know, I'm so excited. So people will just be listening. But in that Zoom room, as an actor, I was able to see also the other participants. And I mean, people were they were doing just what they would be doing if they were on a stage. They weren't just sitting there, stone cold, no movement, delivering their lines. It's like I one of my lines is I'm Tiny Tim, so it's and God bless us, everyone.
Everyone,
Yeah. And so in one of those lines, the narrator is saying how Tiny Tim is approaching the table carrying the turkey all on his own. You might remember Tiny Tim was disabled at the start of the show, right?
I do, yeah,
and so every single time here I am, I can picture myself walking in and carrying this, and I'm sure my arms were like this every time I delivered that line, because in my mind and in my body and in my heart, I was carrying that great big platter with that huge turkey.
Yeah, you've got to do it. You really like. I was having a conversation with somebody recently where they didn't believe it, but I do that same thing whenever I'm in the studio. If I'm doing something, I'm acting, and it was in the studio where I kind of came out of the booth because the person who I was in with, the producer that I'm with, also wrote and produced for TV. So she was in the booth with me, and she's like, you're doing all of this stuff, you're mimicking what the character would do. Like, I want to see you on the other side of the camera now, like in front of there, like acting and doing this. And so, it kind of opened this thing that I'd never thought of before. And, it's definitely a fun experience. And actually, I used to do a regular class mainly for voiceover people. And the whole point of it was called bring your whole body into the studio.
Yeah.
You're not just bringing this, it's everything. And changing your stance, your stature, changing that, it, opens up, or, it can close off and make something sound, so when I'm, for the voice that I was doing, where the producer was like, I'm seeing you do this, I was pretending to be an old man. And, and so I'm kind of leaning over, I'm slouching, like my back is, and, she's like, why are you doing it? I'm like, because I got to sound like that. Like, that's how I'm going to sound like that, is, by kind of mimicking how I feel like this person based upon what I'm reading, moves like and talks like and acts like. And so you have to do that, in my opinion.
Well, that emotional connection that you're making is going to affect your body. I mean, if you're truly 100% there emotionally, there's no way your body is not going to come along, because everything is interconnected. I remember when my very first acting teacher, my first real acting teacher, Joe Dodge, this was in Salem, Oregon, in Pinnacle Theater. And, she would always say, you don't make a movement unless it's emotionally motivated. So it's like, if you're feeling something, your body's going to automatically know what to do. And that's where your blocking on stage comes from. It's as a result of an emotion. So if you're like sitting there in this chair with your leg crossed and I'm like tapping my foot right now. How people do that when they're nervous, especially like in an improv situation on stage.
Absolutely.
Sitting there, your foot's tapping, and your line is, I'm so mad right now. I'm so mad right now. It's like, no, I'm so mad right now. That's how that goes.
You gotta move like a human. It's a very important thing to do.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, we've talked about some of the things that you should do, moving around. Obviously, you want to be careful. This is a microphone right here. So that's why I'm trying not to move too much, because I don't want to beat it up.
Mine's over there.
I made that mistake once in a studio. I was in somebody else's studio, not mine, and I'm flailing my hands around, and boom. And he just looks at me, glares at me, and he goes, "Don't do that again." And I'm like, I won't ever touch that again.
Well, obviously, you do have to be aware of your environment as an actor too. You can't fall off the stage, or
So if you're ever in somebody else's studio, don't hit the microphone. Just, engineers hate that. But something else that drives me crazy, I know it drives you crazy, and I think that we both, want to end the scourge of vocal fry. So for people who aren't familiar, vocal fry. So I'm just barely talking, barely moving in here, like
my pitch is way too low. I have no resonance, and I've got all this pressure on my vocal folds. And how many professional speakers actually talk like that? Oh, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So Now, is there, if you're talking a lot and you're talking with vocal fry, is there, uh, you know, because literally, I don't know, I just can't do it. I mean, it's hard for me to actually allow myself to do it at all. Um, is there like damage that you can do to your voice by, trying to exert your voice with vocal fry? Like,
Absolutely. That describes one of my students perfectly. You know how we were talking about the throat tension earlier?
yes, yeah,
One of my students is a professional poet, speaker. He takes words that he's written and he puts it to music. Not like rap, but
hmm
like spoken word to jazz music. It's very cool. But he had been speaking in vocal fry, too low of a pitch, without enough breath, with throat tension for so many years that he developed nodes on a node on his vocal folds that needed to be surgically removed.
wow,
Believe it or not, Adele, the singer,
hmm
fantastic singer, love her voice, love her music, had to have vocal surgery twice. And I don't know that, I wouldn't say that she necessarily speaks with vocal fry, but she does push while she's singing with harsh onsets sometimes, which is a
yeah,
whole different topic we probably don't have time to get into today. But yeah, it can cause damage to your vocal folds.
yeah. I
And
mean,
it really,
Steven Tyler of Aerosmith had vocal, had nodes, and that
oh,
man screams on stage for a living. So it's interesting that that kind of talking can give you the same condition that people who are belting out, notes on stage like Adele and Steven Tyler, that's that's pretty amazing and
yeah,
definitely
you got
something
to be careful. I
you're
mean, you really want to preserve your instrument. And those who speak in vocal fry, done repeatedly, with harsh onsets, with a lot of pushing over and over and over again, it's going to cause damage. So, I mean, it can be so simple. It can just be a matter of learning to speak on the breath and slightly raise your pitch and make sure you're resonant. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term resonance, but you have a pretty resonant voice. So you're
right.
taking
Yeah.
advantage of all this space in your sinus cavities. It's
Yep.
not pushing from here and pretending like your voice is only from your throat up to your lips. It's not. It's your whole body. It's belly breathing and utilizing that space inside your head so that you're resonant.
Yeah, belly breathing is what allows me to, talk run-on sentences, which happen in scripts fairly often without
Yeah,
having to take a lot of breaths. So, and then I can breathe quietly because I've taught myself how to, and I do speak, yeah, from this region. I can
yeah,
back it up into the back of my throat if I want to, but I'd much rather, you know, project kind of like as you're saying, but because as you mentioned, it allows me to be in the studio for hours at a time some days. This is my today. I have been speaking for a total of probably about 5 or 6 hours already,
wow. And you
and
sound great. Yeah,
and the only thing that I do is I take a sip of water every so often,
right.
and that's the only thing that I need to do for my voice. And but I have sort of a regimen that I follow as well for making sure that I'm ready. I've worked up myself to the level of being able to do several hours. It's not something where anybody should just jump in and be like, okay, I'm going to do 5 or 6 hours today. Definitely not. Read
Yeah,
aloud a little bit at a time until you can do a lot at a time.
yeah. And you just keep your instrument primed.
Right. Yeah.
Because if I stop rehearsing for a while and I just decide, well, which doesn't really happen now that I'm a teacher because I'm always vocalizing and working on it while I'm working with students, right? But
hmm
say I take a vacation, I go on vacation and I don't practice, start having
Yeah.
problems. You know, you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta keep it up. You gotta keep up the practice.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things I like to do is, I like to take walks, and
Me too.
I don't take them alone if I can avoid it, because taking a walk with somebody else and you're just naturally talking as you're walking, and it's such a healthy thing to be able to do, to be able to, do a mild hike, a light hike, or do a brisk walk and be able to talk at the same time, is allowing everything to be open and allowing everything to be, moving around the way that it's intended to be. And
Yeah.
because you're moving, because there's the motion, you have to talk a little bit loud, and it brings you to that kind of projection resonance kind of place. And for me, it's just one of those things that is naturally part of my daily routine.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I do at least one hike a week, and I walk, I try to walk every day, and talk to my kids. I force them to walk to school.
Ah,
They'll thank me someday.
they will. They will.
Yeah, they actually now say to me, like, "Are we going to walk today?" And I'll be like, "It's snowing outside. You guys sure?" They're like, "Yeah, we got to go. Yeah, we got to get to school."
I don't. There's nothing better than getting outside in nature for a good walk to raise your emotional level, I think.
Oh yeah, clears the mind. It just, puts me in a good mood.
Yep.
It allows me to really think about what I have on my, on my agenda for the day. And I can't think of a better way for myself to start the day. A lot of people, it's like that, dragging themselves to the coffee maker. And, I set the coffee maker up because I do drink coffee. I know some people say stay away, but it's just been around so long. I don't, there you go. That's what I like to see. It's also part of my routine, but it's not the beginning of my routine. It's just in there. I like to
Right.
sip a little coffee as I'm going through my emails and responding to stuff and checking out what's going on in the world. And that's how I do things. But
I'm heading out for a walk as soon as we're done here before my lesson at 3. That's what I'm doing. I'm going outside for a walk.
nice. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds like a perfect way. I usually walk around a little bit in the evening. I raise poultry, so I
Oh,
yeah, a lot of chickens. Um, I have a whole bunch of flocking problems. So
oh my. Oh yeah. In a previous life, I had chickens too. I couldn't believe how. This is getting off topic. They don't live very long.
mine don't live very long because of the wildlife around here. So we've tried to build a whole compound for them to see how it'll go. So that's how I spent part of my summer. But anyway, that's completely off topic. And I just like to be outside. I like to have my hands on things and do things and experience things. And I feel like I'm able to bring that into my voiceovers. Like if I'm talking about a tool, I'm like, I've used that tool. I know that tool.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
really talking about how that tool works. I'm like, that tool doesn't do that. I can suggest to they don't always want to hear my suggestions, but sometimes if they're open to them, I'll do things. So,
Yeah.
well, how can people, if they want to get in touch with you, want to get some of your training? I mean, I know you and I found each other, I think, on LinkedIn. I know you've
Mhm.
got laurahandke.com, and I'll put that in here. Do you have any kind of training that's online, or how do people connect with you and get access to you?
Yeah, probably the best thing is just to go to the website, laurahandke.com, because I offer an initial 30-minute complimentary consultation. So, I'll give people a half hour just to talk to them and help them with their voices.
Mm-hmm.
I relatively new is my Saturday morning voice lab. The next one's coming up on January 9th, and that's really affordable. It's only $20 for an hour and a half voice lab, and I can fit up to 20 people in that group.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, I mean, that's probably a good place to start is just go to the website, take advantage of that free consult and maybe check out a voice lab and see if you want to buy a package of lessons.
Well, that is great. You'll definitely have to shoot me information about the voice lab so that I can share that with people. And I'll put the website in there so that people can contact you, and probably your LinkedIn profile as well. I'll put a link to that so that people can, get in touch with you. And I think one of the things that it's great, that you're talking about people who are like, you know, singers and small business owners, and just people who are getting in front of other people. I think that is a place where some people have come to me and said, can you do some coaching? Can you do some training? And I'm like, kind of, but a lot of what I do has been learned over many years. And, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I can definitely give hints and I can definitely give help, but I'm not like the person, to probably, I had people who would come into my studio and I got good, vocals out of them quickly. And if they are going on, with a career in voiceover, I'm okay with that. But it's those people who, maybe like you're saying, it's maybe that connection between, the emotional and the voice that they
Mhm.
might have some more situations to deal with that. Well, I'm going to direct them to you.
I appreciate that.
Well, I definitely enjoy the fact that we got to talk to each other. Um, there are a lot of people in my area today. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to be able to air this, but dealing with some snow, and we barely have any. I'm like, where's this all this snow? I'm near the Canadian border. I should have snow, in December, and a half an inch isn't cutting it. So
Well, maybe you'll have a white Christmas after all.
I sure hope so. Well, Laura, it was a pleasure talking with you. I look forward to seeing more of you on LinkedIn, and I'm hoping that we can continue the conversations online, and who knows, maybe down the road talk again.
Sounds great. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.